Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake has finally released. It's here, and it's fantastic. This is one of those examples of a remake done right. They've expanded on areas that needed to be expanded, they've tightened up areas that needed to be tightened up, and most of all, they've brought an older JRPG into the modern era with a quality of life options that make it easier to enjoy. One of the best JRPGs Falcom has ever made. For those that are unaware, Trails in the Sky is the first game in the Trails series that's been going on for over 2 decades at this point. I think the first one released in 2004, which itself is part of the Legend of Heroes series, which is much older than that. That can go back, I think, 30 years, maybe even further. Needless to say, that used to mean in order to enjoy Trails in the Sky, the original version, you had to be okay with a certain amount of retro game quirks, which for some people, including myself, isn't a big deal, but for some people, it is a deal breaker, and that meant not as many people got to enjoy this game. Well, now they can, and they definitely should. This is, in my opinion, the best way to experience Trails in the Sky, and the best place to start the Trails series. Just for a quick overview of what's been changed, they completely overhauled the graphics. It was originally isometric, now it's full 3D. They added voice acting, changed combat to be more active and easier to use. They've added new dialogue, improved the pacing. Basically, they put a lot of love into this remake, and it shows. If you want more specific details, I've done a video about the differences, which I'll post in the description so you can get a better idea of the details of that. But now, I can recommend this game without having to add a little asterisk next to whether or not you can handle a bit of old school jank. As for what makes Trails in the Sky so great, it really is the story, the characters, and that doesn't just mean the main characters of the party, that's the characters that you meet out in the world. As you move through any of the Trails games, you encounter NPCs that change and grow as you're playing and as you go through the story. They aren't just static the entire time. Like a lot of JRPGs, they'll just have some throwaway dialogue for NPCs. Falcom has put effort into making it feel like they all have their own stories and they live their own lives. And things actually change over time. It's something that builds up over many hours that you spend in their games, and it transfers over to future games in the series. So you might meet one of these seemingly inconsequential NPCs sometime later. Maybe in one of the later games of the series, they might fill a bigger role than they did when you met them at first. Or it might just be nice to see what they've been up to, because they do change. They do different things. That's part of the charm that really makes the Trails series shine. For Trails in the Sky specifically, it has some awesome character interactions and an unusual love story that carries throughout the games. Anyone that knows about Estelle and Joshua and has played through the games will know what I mean. In some ways, it's the classic JRPG story, a coming-of-age story where you learn about the world with the characters, and they grow over time, and they really do grow quite a bit. They grow together. These are the early games that set up a series that will last for, I don't even know, like 13 or so games at this point, many of them taking up to 80 hours to complete, depending on how much you explore them. And throughout those games, you see many of the characters from each different game, and it sort of builds on itself. So you'll get like the roster of each group for each arc, and some of them will show up later. It's all interconnected in a really fun way that you don't get in many other game series. Usually you'll get like the Final Fantasies where they'll just have their cast of characters for the single game and then they'll move on. This, it goes for the entire 13 games, and they'll show up at various times. Some of them won't show up for 1 or 2 games or something like that. The only one I can think of that has a similar huge amount of world building like this is Suikoden, where each game takes place in a different region and it builds up the lore and history of the world. I'm sure there are other examples, but Trails commits fully to that idea. Trails in the Sky isn't without some stumbling blocks, depending on the preferences of the person who's playing. If you aren't willing to go through many hours of slower-paced storytelling, this might not necessarily be the game for you. It isn't painfully slow. It's at a good pace, but Trails isn't about rushing from one destination to the next. It's always been about taking your time, talking to everyone, experiencing the world. Trails in the Sky is a bit more fast-paced than some of the other more modern entries, but the remake does add a bit more time to the game overall because of additions to dialogue and the 3D world. You just have more space to move through. The majority of people who have played all of the way through say it hasn't been stretched out to some 100-hour experience, but expect at least like 15 to 20 more hours added to the game from what it was originally. So imagine somewhere around 60 hours or so with doing side quests and things like that. I would expect much longer than that if you plan on doing things like talking to each NPC and really engaging with the world fully. I think the final verdict is pretty much out for this one. It has around a 91 on OpenCritic as of right now, with reviews slowly trickling in. So for the most part, everyone's echoing my own thoughts on it. This is probably Falcom's best put together RPG that they've ever put out. And considering how long they've been doing things as a company that's been around for 40 years or something like that, that's saying a lot. So pick this game up. You can get it on PlayStation 5, Switch, Switch 2, and PC. I do videos on JRPGs, Western RPGs, and story-based games, so if you love those like I do, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.